The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Before we proceed to the lead co-lawyers for the civil parties, the Chamber would like to note and also draw the attention of parties to the proceedings that during the trial management meeting on the 17th of August 2012, the Chamber wished to encourage parties to put questions to a witness or an expert witness or civil party, but the Chamber would like or encourage councils or parties to nominate one person representing the group to put questions to the witness or civil party in order we could expedite our proceedings. So far, counsels for Mr. Ingsari have applied this routine by way of appointing or nominating one counsel to represent the team when posing questions to a witness. So we would like counsels for the civil parties to also share with us your impression concerning this practice.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. President. We have indeed heard the encouragement of the Chamber, like all the parties here present. I believe that all the parties have expressed their opinions, and some opinions are in favor of the hybrid nature of the examination. That said, I would like to reassure the Chamber that 3 persons will not be examining the witness. Only 2 persons will be doing that. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honours, and all parties. Of course, Mr. President, I will not I will not examine the witness. We have asked Mr. Ang Pik to examine the witness for a simple reason. It is important that a lawyer who speaks Khmer examine the witness. That way, the questions will not be interpreted into Khmer. So, for the convenience of the witness, we will ask our Cambodian colleagues to question him. So, I will not question the witness.
The President, we thank you for that. The Chamber just wished to remind parties on this because we would like to expedite the proceedings, and thank for expressing your position on this. Counsel, you may now continue. Counsel Kim Ming Ki. Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honours, and good afternoon to you, Mr. Am Eun. This morning before we broke, you talked about the period prior to 1975 concerning your medical training and the time when you returned to your hometown. Could you tell us, please, what you did when you returned to your village? Response. After returning from Phnom Penh to my former workplace, I started putting to use my medical skill because at that time there were no medics. And at the same time, I had another task to look after my parents, and later on my father had disappeared. My main duty back then was being a medic. Counsel, thank you. You said you also engaged in medical training in your sector. In the sector, can you tell the court more precisely in which sector or location it was? Response. At that time, I was in the Sector 20 office in the East Zone. It was in Cho Village, Kronyung Commune, Komchai Mia District, Prevang Province, and also Sector 20. Question. Can you also clarify or tell us who the Secretary of Sector 20 was and who assigned the task as a medic to you in that location? Response. From the beginning, since 1979, I was under the supervision of Mr. Kam, who was the secretary of the sector or the zone, rather the sector, and then my uncle Elias Toi Mok, who helped me as well. Question. You talked about the location, but that was before 1975. You talk about the sector in the East Zone. Was it the zone during of the Khmer Rouge, or it belonged to other groups? Can you please be more precise on this? Response. The truth is that this zone was, or sector was in my village. It was the Khmer Rouge liberated zone. The Lon Nol liberated zone was far from that location. Question. In respect of your assignment to teach medical skills to others, could you tell the chamber what kind of subject matters being discussed in those sessions that you provided? Response. In the unit I worked, after being assigned by the sector to teach medical skills to people, at that time I was asked to serve the people in general. I had to be bound by this obligation, the obligation that I had to teach medical skills to other people. I had to impart my knowledge to others who could serve the people. Question. My question in this area is about your service. How could you treat people? How could you prescribe medicines to people at that time? Response. In my teaching as the principal or policy by the party, I had to teach people from not being able to do anything to be good at doing the things. Things started from scratch, and I also had to be good at the skill, so I had to teach others to have the code of ethics for when they are doctors or medics. And I noted that the policy by the party was good, and I would like to impart the good things to others. I was teaching them to understand their position. If they were doctors, they had to be fully responsible for treating people because they had to make sure that if people died under their treatment, then they would also be responsible for that. And I also taught them the causes of the disease and how to treat them. For example, if it is the malaria, so what could have been the cause of malaria and how should it be treated? Question: could you also please explain to the court were you teaching on the job or rather than acquiring skills from the kind of sources like materials? Response: I may walk you back a little bit to the past. By that, I would like to respond as follows. Before I became a medic, I learned on the job when I worked for my grand-uncle. At that time, my skill was not recognized by anyone. I became a medic on the job and never acknowledged by any other professional doctors. After people have learned that I acquired medical skill and they would like me to continue this career, and I got my relatives who all had been medical doctors, and as a doctor, as having this skill, I was admired by other people, and I was asked to be engaged in treating other people or teaching other people on this. So with this background, I couldn't be allowed to pursue my medical training. Question: during the training sessions, the medical training sessions, had you ever noted that the patients could have died under your treatment or other people's treatment? Response: factually, and I have to be telling the truth, and I will tell the court the truth, nothing but the truth about this, so that everyone is familiar with what happened. At my workplace, I never used any individual who had no skill to perform medical duties, and as a doctor or medic, they had to be well trained before they could perform their task. And I had never had any problem with patients dying under my or our supervision. Because at that time, if any patient could have died under our treatment, then the party would never condone such act. Because if we allowed people to die under our treatment, that the party could perceive that we were the enemies of the party by doing that. Question. I may now move to the topic concerning the liberated zone. Could you tell the chamber on the living condition of people within the liberated zones and outside, if you still recollect? Response. Dear survivors of the Khmer Rouge regime, when we refer to the liberated zone, we refer to the zone under supervision of the Khmer Rouge by the party. Liberated zone means the zone that was liberated from the enemies and was under the control of the Khmer Rouge. That's based on my recollection. And at that time, I did not know whether there is any other zones that were not liberated. I had been living in the liberated zone since I was very young. Question. Were there any arrests, punishment, restriction of freedom of movement happening at that time in that zone? Response. I would like to talk about this in three different phases. First, it's about liberated zone, and then the period of 1975, and another phase after 1975. So please bear with me. In the liberated zone, the general population in the zone had to be grouped into the cooperative to do the mutual assistance farming. And later on, the real cooperatives were established. In the liberated zone, each cooperative had to listen to the party. And in the same liberated zone, in 1970, or starting from the coup d'etat by Lorno, there was another situation that draws my attention. There were separate groups, like youth group, the popular mass group, and general group of people. We have progressive people, we have full tribe people, and we have people who did not enjoy the full rights, so on and so forth. And I was belonging to the Nationalist Youth League. They were the core forces. The core forces here are the full strength forces here refer to people who could perform their duty fully, completely. They could even leave homes. So the living condition was decent. People could talk to one another without any problem. But that was in the period of 1970s, before 1975. So people enjoyed freedom as usual. That was the first phase. By 1975, strange thing happened. We noted there were pillar persons. We have the infiltrated individuals in the party. So in 1975, people were classified into three categories. We have the full tribe people, the candidate people, and also the enemy of the people who were perceived to be enemies of the party. And the living condition of each respective category of people was different according to the status. And correct me if I'm wrong. From that year until 1975, people council intervene. Could you please slow down, Mr. Sivapati? Sivapati continues. People could live their normal life. As a medic, I provided trainings to people on medical skills, and I taught them to understand the morality in daily life and how to treat patients politely and professionally as doctors. So between 1970 and 1975, life was normal and the work was good. And we could see who would be the rich, who would be the poor, and that is really the truth. However, in 1975, people, again as indicated, were classified into three categories, and I was taken off guard because this surprising happened. At that time, I had to be very vigilant. I had to be very careful because I knew bad things could happen. But after 1975, I was loved by the secretary of the sector, and he tried to conceal my identity by changing my autobiography because he knew that my father had affiliation to the former regime. He changed this biography and he allowed me to attend study sessions in Phnom Penh in 1975, although I don't recollect the exact month. Question. I thank you very much indeed, but in your response, could you also please observe some pauses so that your response can be fully rendered into the languages concerned? You just now indicated that people were classified into three categories, including the full tribe people, the candidate people, and the progressive, for example. Could you also be more precise? How were these people treated? If they were not the full tribe people, how could they become full tribe people? Response. I said people were classified into three categories: the progressive people, the full tribe people, and the not yet full tribe people. People who lived in their homes, and the progressive people were called the popular mass. And then we had the category of pillar persons. Pillar persons refer to the people who lived in the base. And then we have the people, the peasants in particular, who were in the associations, who treated as the full tribe people. Other people would be treated as those who have less right, who had to subject to being asked to do things they wanted them to. Question. You said about the candidate people, the full tribe people, and another category of people. I would like you to also elaborate on this. Response. Are you asking me about the period before 1975 or after? Question. Indeed, I was talking about the situation in the liberated zone. Response. I think I already talked about this. The category of people who regarded as enemy only was noted after 1975. Before that, this group of people did not exist. And when people who were regarded as the enemies of the party were mainly the intellectuals and students. Question. Thank you. You also indicated that youth were classified into groups. Could you explain to us, please, on how young people were classified? Response. Young people were classified. They were the progressive people. These people had to obey whatever instruction rendered by the party. These youth group had to leave their parents to join the army as long as the party wanted. And these people were regarded as progressive people because they had they could not deny the orders. And another group of people were called the group of people that could be used as their servants. These people did not have the right to protest or to complain. Question. Were these young people encrypted or enrolled in the army, or were they asked mainly to do farming? Response. I also wish to clarify on 2 points to avoid more curiosity and uncertainty. The youth who were appointed had important roles. These youths were obliged to perform their duty, those who were 16 years old or above. If the party wanted them to perform the duties in the revolution, these people had to do, because they had no right, I can say. They're not, if the party wanted them to do anything, they had to. If they had to leave their parents, they had to. They had no choice. So I can say that these people were forced to perform their duties, because if they protest, if they denied or refused to obey the orders, they would be considered as the enemies or adversaries. And I also wish to emphasize that it's really very sad that at that time I loved Buddhism and I love people, but at that time the party asked me to smash the pagoda, the Buddhas, but I had no choice. I loved Buddhism and I was bestowed with the authority to smash the religion, the Buddhas that I once loved and respected, but I had no choice. I was sent to study in Phnom Penh. I was blessed to be offered the opportunity to attend training session in Phnom Penh.
The work of the youth were forced, and you said that you were ordered by the party to destroy Buddhism. How did you do it? And how was the order handed down to you as youth at the time? The response: I would like to continue from what I left off just now. Destroying Buddhism took many forms, one of which was was not allowing people to enter manhood, and they also forbid pagoda construction and building. That was the overall picture of the destruction of Buddhism. And particularly in 1973 and 1974, I kept wondering to myself, if I resist against the order, I would be accused of protesting against the party. Then I would be considered a traitor. And they also said that the Buddhist statue were merely a stone, a piece of stone, and it could be thrown into the water or the river or the lake or so. That was the case. So I would like to ask those who live during that period, they would be aware of that fact. President, Council, please be advised that you should limit your question to the confine of the case, and the same is true for the witness. Witness should try to answer to only the question posed by the Council. You should avoid having to elaborate further beyond the scope of this. And Council, please be reminded that you have only 1/4 of a day to put the question to the witness. And that is the time allocation to you, Council. And please also bear in mind that we are now examining the facts relevant to the first and the second phase of population movement. So please refrain from asking any questions that is outside the parameter of the current case before us. It will not be conducive to ascertaining the truth, and in addition, it will not have anything to do with the current crimes alleged with the accused.
But
Lawyer Menki. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to now move on to my next question. Then, when the Cambodia was liberated in 1975, what did you do and where did you live? Response. At the times I lived in Sector 20, I was a physician. Question. In Sector 20, where you lived after liberation, did you see the evacuation of people from Phnom Penh into your area? Response. To be honest, I did see people coming in. It was not the return of people, but they were the evacuees who left Phnom Penh for the area. Question. What were those people categorized, and what was their living condition like when they got to that place? I can divide my answer into two parts. Following the liberation in 1925, in the East there were two aspects. First, when Sao Phum was still there, the organization of the people were normal. There was no segregation between people. They did not label people as progressive or old people or so. That was the fact I witnessed at that time. That was the what I witnessed at that early part of the liberation. Question. Were the people from Phnom Penh called new people, or they were simply called people like other people in the area as well? On this point, not to make the story long, people who came from Phnom Penh were called the 17 April or the new people, and at that times they normally called the people from Phnom Penh as 17 April people.
But
Question. Can you tell the numbers of evacuees, the influx of evacuees in Sector 20? Was it in large number or what? Response. It was not the transfer of people, but it was the evacuation of people, and they were mainstream into the base people. There were many people coming from Phnom Penh, and as for the living condition, if the old people had their houses, and they would at some point they were moved to live with their relatives, so that they could vacate one of the houses to allow it for the new people to settle in.
ការងាររបស់លោកអ៊ំទៅទីកន្លែងណាទៀត
Question. Following the liberation in 1995, where did you go? Following the liberation, to my recollection, it was under the direction of Kham, who was the secretary of the sector. He sent me for medical training in Phnom Penh, and I was also attached with the Russian hospital over. So at that time, I was under medical training, and if there was a need for personnel at the base, I would be transferred back to the base. So I was on mobile. I could be transferred back to the base any time when it was warranted. Question. When you were sent to Phnom Penh, how long did the training last, and who were the trainers, and who invited you or sent you to attend the training course? Response. It was the decision of the party that I be attached in the training program for a year, but in my estimation, I was in Phnom Penh for less than a year, about 10 months or so. But in principle, I had to attend the training for a period of 1 year. But actually, I attended for only 9 months or so. Because when I was attending the training, there was some involvement in the East Zone, particularly the warfare along the border between Cambodia and Vietnam. So I had to return prematurely. I would like to now expand on the period when you were attending the training in Phnom Penh for 9 months. Can you tell the court about the impression you had about the training as well as the activities you did throughout the training course? I can describe some of the activities, but at this point I would like to bring up some important facts. The reason that I went to the training, I had to be vigilant for myself as well, and I had to observe the situation very closely. And the more we knew about that information, we had to be vigilant, and we had constant fear. We witnessed things, but we could say nothing about it. For example, people... That was the fact, but I could not speak them out. And during that period, I could not remember the detail, but I could not imagine that Cambodia would be in that situation. At that time, I could not do anything but to save my life. When I was attending the training course, I observed one political involvement, and I was influenced by that political movement, which was led by the Communist Party of Cambodia. They wanted to develop the country in a great leap forward. And the story was very long, but I could hardly say during this court session. But if the court permits, then I will elaborate further. question. I would like to rephrase my question because I think probably my question was a bit confusing for you. You said that you had... No, actually, correction interpreter. In this court, of course, you can say anything that you have experienced, you came across, you witnessed it during that period. So my question is that during the 9 months period of training, what did you do? For example, in the first 1 or 2 months of the training, what were you required to do in that training course? Response. When I left Sector 20 for Phnom Penh, I was designated with a position as the student's leader. So as a leader of the student, I had a different task from other ordinary students. I had the privilege to get to know updated information, and I had to mainstream that information to people down below. If we fail to understand that information, I would be at risk. My life would be at risk at the time. So I worked under intense pressure at that time. So I had to be vigilant for my own life. That's why I said earlier that if I tell you a complete story, probably it may take the court's time. I would like to now bring up the things that I witnessed myself, and I apologize to the chamber if what I saw was not something that is of interest to everyone. Question. So can you tell what you witnessed or what you saw at that time? President, the National Counsel for Mr. Nunjia, you may proceed. Counsel Sonaran. I am of the opinion that the question being asked by the counsel is leading and highly suggestive. That's why it confuses the witness. Mr. Mainki. Mr. President, this is not a leading question, and there is no reason why I try to mislead the civil party. I think that the civil party is in the opinion that his answers might have some implication or so. President. Counsel, please be advised that your question is precise. If I recollect your questions very well, you ask the witness about the first 1 or 2 months when he came to Phnom Penh to attend the training course. So the witness said he wanted to describe what he saw. And when he said he wanted to elaborate on what he witnessed, then you continue to ask other questions, so please be specific. And the question is not precise enough for the civil party, and that will lead to confusion. Please try to make the question succinct and so that the witness will not be led to make a very lengthy response. If he continue to do this, I am afraid that it will encroach on the time allocated to you. Particularly, it will impact on the times allocated to other parties. That's why the chamber reminds you that of many questions you ask were not relevant to the relevant facts of the first case 0002/01. We want you to stay within the confine of this current case. So please make sure that you put precise questions to the witness and make it succinct. Thank you, Mr. President. I try to rephrase my question. When you first arrived in Phnom Penh, what were you appointed to do, and what did you see generally? What did you observe at the hospital? Throughout the training course I attended, actually the appointment from the sector to me was to become a physician. And at that time I worked as a physician and a student, a medical trainee too. And I attended political training in Borei Kaila. And during the political training over there, we learned how to change the mindset of the people, try to transform them to fall in line with the great leap forward policy. And those political training courses did not last long. It normally lasted for a week or 10 days or so. And it was held once per month or twice per month. And the participants of those political trainings were of the rank equivalent to the present administrative rank of the chief of a district. So I was there. I was the student leader, and I was allowed to participate in those political trainings. And in addition, I was also a party member. That's why I was introduced to attend those political training sessions. Question. When you were attending those political training sessions, what did they teach you? The President. Witness, please hold on. Counsel, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for interrupting again for the same reason. But is it possible maybe to slow down a little bit between the questions and answers, and especially the MNs who is speaking a bit too fast? It's making the translation a little bit difficult.
Thank you. Thank you for your observation. Actually, the gentleman before us is not a witness. He is now before us in his capacity as a civil party. And please try to respond slowly, the civil party. So my question again was, what did they teach you in the political training session you attended? In the session I attended in Borei Kaila, to my recollection, there were topics relating to the victory of the Great Revolution of the Communist Party of Cambodia. So they introduced us what it meant by the Great Leap Forward. And the lecturers or speakers at that time, they explained that the Great Leap Forward was to transform the country from a socialist to a communist. country. That's what I noticed in the training course at the time.
បាទហើយ
Question. Who were the usual speakers during those training sessions?
ដំណើរ
At the time, to my recollection, the training center opens the political training under the supervision of Minister Yun Yat. Question. Apart from Minister Yun Yat, who were the speakers in those training sessions?
ក្នុងនោះបើតាម
At the time, I saw Comrade Pol Pot, and I saw Mr. Nuon Chea, Mr. Khieu Sampon. I am not sure whether or not I saw Mr. Ieng Sari. But at the time, I was sure that I saw Mr. Khieu Sampon and Mr. Hu Nums, who were the guest speakers in those political training sessions.
លោកអ៊ំអាចរៀបរាប់បានទេអំពី
Question. Could you also describe to us, please, concerning each speaker in the event? Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, and Khieu Sampon. What did they say during their speech time? Response. At the beginning, there were several people in the leadership position who were seen on the stage. I only count people I knew. And the content, those people included Mr. Nuon Chea, Khieu Sampon, and Mrs. Ling Sai. She was from the social actions. The person who had the floor first was the leader of the party, who was Pol Pot. Question. What did Pol Pot say? Response. I think I may be repetitive in this. These three people, had to take turn taking the floor, and they linked their speech to one another. For example, if I would like to give you just an example. After Mr. Khieu Sampon had said something, then another person who came would say that now Mr. Khieu Sampon had already said something. Did you understand that? And then he proceeded to continue the speech. I couldn't remember the whole speech, each exact word of the word. I can say that these people normally just wrap up what the other speaker first said. He or she summarized the speech of previous speaker before he or she proceeded to make his or her own speech. And again, the person who started first was Pol Pot. And he said, as a communist, we had to understand clearly our roles so that we could be in line with what the Great Leap Forward party wanted. And he also said that every one of us was expected of being in line with the Great Leap Forward. And I asked other people about the term Great Leap Forward, what it means. And it was explained, and we knew that Great Leap Forward mean leaping greatly from the from democratic situation to the communist without going through socialism. Everyone was expected to have this great leap forward. If we couldn't have this great leap, then we would be considered as enemies. This was the language used by Pol Pot. And when Nuon Chea came to the stage, he picked up a few words from Pol Pot before he began his own speech. Mr. Khieu Samphan also did the same. So to me, these people had to repeat one another before adding further points. Question. How long was each political session conducted and how many people attended? Response. I cannot remember fully, but I believe that the session could be no longer than 10 days, but no less than 7 days. So it's between 7 days and 10 weeks, rather 10 days or 2 weeks. Question. What about the number of participants? How many attended? Response. I never counted them, but I can say that there were approximately 2,000 attendees. Because people were invited from the districts, the deputy chief and the secretary of the district would then be called to attend the sessions. Question. When Mr. Nuon Chea made his speech, what was the content of such speech after Pol Pot? Response. Following Pol Pot, he talked about the policy to strengthen communists, and he was talking about finding individuals who bore within the party. And he was very firm and affirmative concerning this. He said that as the leaders or people in the leadership, we had to know people who were opposing the party who were infiltrating in the party's line. Question. Did Mr. Nuon Chea explain further on who would be categorized as those who were infiltrating the internal party? Response. At that time, I felt that Nuon Chea was referring to people who could have been the soldiers in the previous regimes, including the Norodom Sihanouk and Lon Nol's regimes. And also they targeted the intellectuals and students, particularly those who graduated abroad. Question. What about Mr. Keo Sampon? What did he say in his speech during the training session? Response. Mr. Keo Sampon, before giving his speech, he said that every one of us had to look at how we can change ourselves to achieve this goal. As good citizens, we had to ensure that our performance was well done. And I could tell that he would like us to start from small things, to look at the practice. Look at our daily life and activity. If you see people who used things unwisely, these people would be the ones who are opposing the party already. So start identify these people by way of looking into their own behavior and activities. Question. Could you please be more precise on this? When you say that people who used things unwisely could be regarded as those who oppose the party or the revolution. Response. I think I would like to also touch upon this. What I saw was that he advised us to look at how people behaved. For example, with women, they started to look at how women used the needles. If women used the needles unwisely, carelessly, then these could be the people who opposed the party. And for those workers who pretended to be sick very often, then these also categorized as people who betray the party. The President. Thank you very much, Council and Civil Party. It is now appropriate moment for the adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn for 20 minutes. The next session will be resumed by 3 o'clock. Court officer is instructed to assist Civil Party during this break.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រងចូល